I'm Pastor Lavern, and welcome to Take 5 as we continue in our series, Families for God. I want to address a certain concept that we find in the book of Exodus, chapter 10, where Pharaoh asks Moses a question, but who will go with you? When you read the history behind the children of Israel, the Bible tells us that the 12 or 11 sons of Jacob one day were looking for grain in Egypt. There was a famine, and the famine had taken its toll on Jacob's family. So Jacob says to his children, go and look for bread in Egypt. And as we know from the book of Genesis and into Exodus, the prime minister or the prince who was in Egypt, who was overseeing the granary and the food stocks, was Joseph himself. To cut a long story short, the Bible tells us that finally Joseph negotiates that his relatives and his family come into Egypt to find a safe haven there. There is a point to ponder there. Many of us, when God has given us success, when God has elevated us in the corporate world and in society, and when we have become people of means, we forget our families. The Bible reminds us in the writings of the Apostle Paul that we have a duty to God and to our families to take care of our families. So Joseph is a good example, though the circumstances were not so pleasant, but he is a good example of a man who has been blessed by God, but who remembers his family. But as you read the book of Exodus, particularly chapter 1, the Bible tells us that a Pharaoh who did not know Joseph arose and sat on the throne. And so the children of Israel, instead of becoming a blessing to Egypt, they became, in his perception, a potential military threat. So the Bible tells us that for 400 years, the children of Israel were set in captivity. But even as the Israelites were in captivity, God, through a Levitical family, orchestrates the birth of a man called Moses. And as you read the history of Moses, Moses for 40 years grows up in the context of Egypt. He is even considered a prince in Pharaoh's house. But finally, when he sees the oppression that his people, the Israelites, go through, God sends him into the wilderness. And for another 40 years, God is with Moses. And one day in Exodus chapter 3, the Bible tells us that God appears to him and he gives him a mission. The mission is to go and rescue the larger Israelite family from Egyptian bondage. So the Bible tells us that God sends Moses. And guess what? The two people who were led by God to take the children of Israel out of Egypt come from the same family, Moses and Aaron, his brother. And the trump card and the message that goes from Moses and Aaron from God is, let my people go. And so as we go through the 9 plagues that God inflicts on Egypt, we come to Exodus chapter 10, where Pharaoh poses a question, and he says to Moses, who will go with you? Who are they who will go with you? And Moses says, we will go with our young ones. We will go with our old ones. We will go with our wives. We will go with our flocks, and not a hoof shall be left behind. What is the lesson for us? The lesson for us in this, Moses, by saying not a hoof shall be left behind, was essentially reminding us that in order for the Israelites to be truly emancipated from Egyptian bondage, not a trace of anything that was Israelite was to remain in Egypt. Imagine if the elderly people and Moses and the wives had gone out, but the children had remained behind. Physically, the Israelites would be out of Egypt, but their minds would still be in Egypt, thinking about their children or their flocks which they left behind. As we look forward to the second coming of Christ, this question is posed to us. As God is sending the messengers throughout the world, that His children who are in the four corners of the earth be emancipated from the bondage of sin. The devil, who is represented by Pharaoh, asks a question: who shall go with you? The devil doesn't mind if you go and your children remain behind. The devil doesn't mind if you go and your wife remains behind. But our response, like the response of Moses, must be: everything that is Israelite will come out of Egypt. Egypt symbolizing the hold that the world has on us, the power that sin has over us. I'm reminded of Lot and his wife. After Abraham has negotiated the redemption of Lot, angels, the Bible tells us in Genesis chapter 19, angels had to encourage Lot, literally pull him by the hand, that he leaves Sodom, for destruction had come. But even as Lot leaves, his wife looks back and she is turned into a pillar of salt. And so for your family, you might be a mother, you might be a father, you might be a grandfather, you might be a leader of your family. The question from Scripture comes even to you today: who are you going to go to heaven with? When Jesus appears in the clouds of heaven, when He says, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant," make it your ambition to ensure that your family goes with you, your wife goes with you, your husband goes with you, your children, your grandchildren, everything that you are must go with you. Who will go out? We will go with everything, and not a hoof shall be left behind.
Take 5 is a show produced by the Chizipiti Church, a fountain of love, and is made possible by support from many partners. If you wish to follow more of our studies on these and many other subjects, please connect with us on the Chizipiti SDA Church on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Like our platforms and share with us your comments. We also have our plug-in team ready to pray with you and encourage you through life's challenges. So please connect with us and would love to pray with you. We can't wait to hear from you. And remember, when life seems to drown you, just take a moment, take a break, and take 5 to reflect.
Thank you for joining me on Take 5. I look forward to your questions, your contributions, and your comments. See you in the next episode. God bless and God be with you.